I'm probably overly optimistic. However, it's an investment of your time. For them to be there, to bring them in, it's what is this going to take? But you taking that time to get them built up, to teach them all of the things, that's money. That's a lot of money. You do that 2-3 months, time over time, individual, even after they go into like a 6 weeks, or 3 weeks, whatever it is, virtual learning, like there's still things that they need to do specifically for the role in which you're managing them for.
Are your key salespeople underperforming? It could be a process issue, but it could also be a talent issue as well. Both of these can easily prevent them from being successful. In this week's episode, we had Deborah Newton and her company, Newton Steele. They specialize in sales engagement and growth with a focus on the logistics industry. Hope you enjoy the listen. And this is the Cash Flow Chronicles Open Forum.
Deborah, I appreciate you joining us here on the Cash Flow Chronicles. As you know, it's really focusing great people talking about right now sales enablement. I think a lot of people in sales are kind of challenged with what's the best process to achieve sales success. I know this is a loaded question to start the conversation, but when does a team know that they're struggling with sales and they need to bring in somebody or bring in a different perspective?
I think before they get to the point of scratching their heads. I think that the best people to work with are those that want to be proactive. If you're doing good, why not be better? That's in a perfect world how it would be, because one, you're not saying that you can't go back and help, but usually once it's already past that point and the numbers are plummeted or plateaued, you keep kicking the can down the road. Not to say that it can't be fixed, but it's definitely harder. Because then you have a lot of bad habits that maybe shouldn't be allowed that slowly, progressively start to be allowed. So yeah, in a perfect world, for those to be mindful of it and to do it before it gets to that point would be ideal. However, if it's not, if there's turnover, again, in the logistics space, if there's, the market, people are still working, things are still moving. Again, speaking in the logistics sales, someone's gonna move the freight, everything's getting moved around already. You hear more excuses, I guess is a better way of saying it.
I think even just like there's so many variables, and I think stay proactive before it becomes a recurring issue. And
that would be ideal in a perfect world. You're exactly
in
right.
every circumstance, bring somebody in that can really go a thorough analysis, through.
And to be able to capture what is happening and that to be proactive. I think that what I've seen are a lot of the people, you do good, it's a cultural thing. The company's doing great. The standards in which you held your people to, yourself as a leader, as an owner, awesome. But then slowly things have been allowed to happen. So that foundation that you built starts chipping away. It starts chipping away. So it's not overnight. I always, and everyone probably roll their eyes every time they hear this, but I say it all the time, it's like weight loss and weight gain. It doesn't happen overnight. 2-3 months later, you realize that those small habits that you've allowed yourself, bad or good, to do, then you see the results. So that is the same thing with sales. It's not an overnight, it's letting things slip. The accountability that you used to hold people to, etc., like the processes that you were very strict on implementing and keeping have faded away. And then that's when bad habits start to come. That's when the culture shifts. That's when your people, the animals are running the zoo. Can I say that? Because it's the truth.
Salespeople, it's safe
really
assumption.
Is.
Wrangling cats.
Yes, yes, herding cats. It's true, and for sure, we're humans. I mean, we're gonna do the path of least resistance.
Well, I think that with sales, it's that A-type personality, right?
For 100%.
Right. So you want to make sure that you got everybody in the right spot. You want to make sure that you have all your A guys that are up front. But I think one of the questions I have for you is, how does an owner identify, hey, I really like this guy, but they're an underperformer? How do you keep them around? How do you make that hard question of, I got to cut this guy, he's been here for 20 years?
You cut it.
You cut it.
I'm sorry, yeah, and I feel bad. That's where keeping a pulse on what you're doing, and there might be great people, and they're showing up and they help with that culture. That's a different story. Maybe there's a different position for them. Maybe being able to move them for where they were once excelling, that might be able to. That's staying in tune with your people, 100%. If it's bad weight and negative energy, bringing the culture down, there's no excuse for that.
That's one of the things that we've kind of had an opportunity, if you work at a couple banks or there's mergers and acquisitions, you can take that moment, pause. Here's our team. We have institutional knowledge and people understand the systems and how our processes work. Is everybody sitting in the right seat, right?
It's huge.
You know, I don't want to do sales anymore. Great. Well, what can you do? And it's an opportunity to make a switch, make a change.
And on the flip side, the individual themselves, they need to prove or show their value, you know, so it's kind of and that's where, you know, I understand if there's a larger company, but there's levels of people that you can still get that intimate to know what they're doing. You know, it's like, oh, I work for a big company, you're not still a number. I've worked for multi-billion-dollar companies. Like, you have your own little family within that office, and that's, of course, it grows and then it gets global, but you can still get down to that level. And I think the second you take your eye off the ball as a leader and don't do that and make excuses, it all comes down to excuses, I'm sorry, but it really does. If you're allowing that behavior from yourself, then you're allowing that behavior from your people, and then it just runs downhill from there. So yeah, the seat, the right people on the bus and having them in the right seat, I'm a huge, why can't I think of the name of the book? It's
Energy Bus.
Good to Great. No, it's
Oh,
Good to Great. It is, but it's true. And getting really good at that particular, you know, not squirrel and taking off and doing various things, like honing in and getting really good. My other favorite, Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect.
I was going to mention the compound effect.
Well, that's
set
like the
standards.
small, seemingly insignificant actions that you're doing day over day. And again,
Builds.
good or bad. Yes, it does. They compound on each other. And that's where keeping your finger on the pulse of, if you're allowing like 60 cold calls or 2 hours talk time, whatever that looks like, and you allow yourself, I don't have to do those 5. Then that becomes your new norm. Then you're showing up at that less than 5. Then the next year, the next day. And then other people are seeing that, the energy ripples through, your 100% guys then turn into 80%, and that's your new norm.
And it's interesting to say that because I'm in year 3 in my role, and there was a lot of learning, a lot of trial and tribulation, what works, what doesn't work. And I'm telling these individuals that are year 1 into the role, it's like, continue to do this. It may suck right now, but year 3, you start to see that payoff.
Absolutely.
Just stay with it.
Right. To have it happen overnight.
Yeah.
And I used to tell my sales reps that too. That's great if you can get the quick win and, you know, to kind of get you that boost. But the sustainable clients that you're working with, the relationships, that you don't want that to happen overnight. It's like getting married on the first date.
Yeah.
Like that's, you know, you want to be able to get to know someone and work with them and build that trust, because those are the people that are going to work with you forever. And any industry, I don't care what you're selling or what you're trying to do.
There's 2 questions. We had John Ball and Lisa Goyette on there talking about employee culture and things like that. So I think with a sales organization, yes, you have type A players, but they work from home in this world we live in right now, and they don't want to be micromanaged because they're type A individuals, but they also work from home, so they could be dejected or have a bad day or anything like that. From a manager standpoint, what tips do you have to keep those individuals motivated?
That is a great question. And now especially one, speaking from experience, up until 2020 in the freight space and any of the brokerage space, I don't care what snowstorm, what hurricane, like, you're coming in the office. That kind of flipped it on its head. I feel that as it's an individual thing, I don't think that there's any way, because there's always been outside sellers. You know, there's always been outside sellers, there's always been producers, there's people that have always home officed or, you know, wherever there's Wi-Fi, traveled, working out of their vehicles. This isn't anything that's new. What's new is the people holding themselves accountable and driving themselves, having that ambition to want to do it, versus somebody having to police their work and force them to do it. So, I mean, again, like, I've been an outside seller. I've worked in many of startups as well as larger companies. The people that are motivated, you don't have to motivate. They're going to do it. They're going to want to do it. They're hungry for it. The people that aren't, and you have to police their work and they're doing just the bare minimum, that's the wrong seat. You know, that to me is cut it loose. If it's not good now, I mean, work with them, of course, coach them. Maybe it's something that they're missing or they don't understand, or educational piece, or something that you as a leader aren't doing. But if not, there has to be that point I don't know. That's just I think that when you're working from home, you're working part-time.
So Gary Vee, you guys may be familiar with him. So one of the things, he was in an interview, somebody asked him and said, hey, how do I get good at hiring? his response was, "You be good. You get real good at firing," because he goes, "You figure out real quick and you fire them." So if you realize, again,
You know within
it's-
that first.
Yeah. So again, if you think nobody's good at hiring, you got to be good at firing when you realize we made a mistake. Cut it loose early and move on.
We always did the 90-day, like the 90-day.
But you got to enforce it.
Yes, yeah.
And a lot of times it's, we'll work it out, and now you're sitting with that person long term.
No,
that's where
you
the
can't. It's but for me as a leader, when I was hiring for salespeople, being very selective. There's a couple times I might have gotten like, oh shoot, I got sold. I'm like, darn it, but because I want to go in and be hopeful. I'm probably overly optimistic. However, it's an investment of your time. For them to be there, to bring them in, it's what is this going to take? And maybe it is a little selfish, but you taking that time to get them built up, to teach them all of the things, that's money. That's a lot of money. You do that 2-3 months, time over time, individual over, even after they go into like a 6 weeks, or 3 weeks, whatever it is, virtual learning, like there's still things that they need to do specifically for the role in which you're managing them for. That being said, to Gary V's point, if you realize that's an exhaustion, that you're not getting the ROI out of your time, it's not going to change. Like cut it loose sooner rather than later, or lateral. I don't know. My old company used to do a lot of like lateral moves, and I'm like, no, like if they're not good there, where are they going to be good? That's a whole different conversation, though. We can hold that one.
So I think this goes down the management route. The value of one-on-ones and authentic relationships from a manager to an employee. If you can create an environment when that employee says, hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, I don't think I'm a fit for this role, in your experience, how has that happened versus where it's very top down?
Yeah, I learned a very hard lesson earlier on, probably not as, could have learned it sooner, but I'm the type of person, no news is good news. Tell me once, I'll get it done. I'll reach out, hey, Matt, I need your help. I don't understand this. Carry on. I assumed going in early on that everyone thought that way, and it's not. So knowing that, taking a step back, understanding what the person is, whether they need additional help, if they need additional help, having the one-on-ones, being able to have the line, know where that line is if you're not getting scammed.
I think you talked about doing one-on-ones, right? How about this? A lot of people get blindsided because they haven't been doing one-on-ones. And how frequent should you be doing it? On a weekly basis, daily check-in, monthly, quarterly, whatever it may be. And you'll find that, I'm sure you've seen this, where the performers, you don't need to check in anywhere near as much because they haven't had issues, they're hitting their goals, I don't need to. So a lot of times those good salesmen, let them run.
For sure. And that's where I assumed everyone was call me, tag me in if you need help. Well, I didn't set that line of where's help, where's when you need me. There were so many people that I had at one time. I knew the people, and I had to literally parse them out to your point. And it literally was those people that, hey, call me if you need me. And they're like, fine, like I don't need to, like literally if something's on fire.
You were like, okay.
Yeah, if you need me to come in and deflect or do something, please call. And it was an understanding, and it was great because they're top performers, they're carrying all of this. It wasn't, well, my boss never calls me. No, we were doing our jobs. That's when getting a feel, and that's also knowing your culture, that's also knowing your people, and getting to know them on a level to understand what they might need.
What they need and how you can help them be successful.
And if you can, that too.
I think that's a really good point because every person has different triggers. They may care about you as a person versus just numbers. Some are super number focused. Hey, where's the business? All right, well, a 15-minute conversation.
If it doesn't make me money, get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, don't have meetings to have meetings. Like, get things solved
It's like, hey, how was your weekend? How's your family? Stuff like that. Some people care more about that, and I think it's an important piece. Not to bring up another book, but Radical Candor, lead with the head and lead with the heart. So some people care about the person.
Yeah, I honestly, and this might be its own conversation, and one that I always relate it to There needs to be you heard it here first, sign my NDA. There needs to be the 5 business languages. There's the 5 love languages, but obviously we can't take those into work. But it's true. When it comes to humans and how people see love, there's the 5 different ways, but there's ways that you can businessify. Can we say businessify?
You just made up a
I
word.
think I like it. Again,
Everyone,
yeah,
the
copyright
NDA does
that.
not have to be signed.
Right. But to take those same principles and businessify them. Sorry, but there isn't, obviously, outside of physical touch and gifts, there are people that work better on the extra attaboys, and my old VP and I worked really well at that because it was harder for me, because I'm like, congratulations, you did your job. You know, it was hard for me to, and again, that's where I don't want to sound insensitive, where I would take him in to do that because it was just a different dynamic. It takes a village. But then there's also those, that words of affirmation, acts of kindness. So by doing things, there's a way that you can interpret or find out the individual in that.
Motivation, what motivates them
Right.
to continue to either do their job, be happy.
And finding what that is. You know, like you said, a lot of people want to come and chop it up about their weekend and the family, and then there's other people where it's their vaults,
There's people
which is fine.
there's people I can't get off the phone. I'm like, I have a job to do.
We're both so
Really,
nice,
man?
like, yeah.
You know people like that? I think we're those 2 people.
Well,
We can talk about anything to anyone at any
there's
time.
way worse people than me, let's be honest.
Good to know.
It's like, hey, I got to get off the phone here. So,
Like,
We're not the only ones.
yeah.
No.
Squirrel?
yes, yes. But it's true. But of course, knowing where those guardrails are. But some people overshare I guess the TMI of the world. That's them, and that's fine. But if they're not heard in that way, that's where, I don't know, the culture shifts. I don't know. I would ask you guys, where's that line, and where do you not want to step over it?
I think it's on a person by person basis, right? So like you kind of said, it's kind of funny. So I'm the kind of person that I have to pause and remind myself that, oh yeah, how was your weekend, right?
That's awesome. Now, yes, I'm the
I
same
have to
way.
remember to listen.
Good job, Go.
You have to have listening skills so you actually listen to that person,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I have to take that, interpret it. Okay, so and sometimes I'm just kind of like, I'm great, moving on to business, right? So sometimes you lose that sensitivity. You need to be sensitive to certain people. Going back to where's the line? You have to talk to that person to understand, hey, this person doesn't like talking about the personal life, so I don't do that. This person, talk your ear off and that's fine. But I think it's important to make relationships with people, understand who they are, and that no 2 relationships are the same.
Do you find, and that's a great point, absolutely. Do you find, and this is kind of how I've tried to spin it for people to understand just that, we do it for our customers. We have that same understanding, sitting down with them, having a business meeting, dinner, luncheon, coffee, whatever that is when we're in front of them. But the people that we're working with or that report to us or whatever the case may be, we allow that from the customers and clients. Why don't we recognize it within our own teams?
It's a group think mentality. We're all pushing towards a number, especially in a sales culture. Sometimes it's easy to forget we're in like a selling mode.
The human mode.
Yeah.
Right, because we can allow that you can call that customer any time of the day and you're not going to cut him off. You're going to listen to everything that they say and know about the family and all the good, bad, and indifferent. But as a leader, that same, and this is what I'm reminding myself of, like that same patience level and listening, not just actually hearing what is being said, because I'm fact finding when I'm talking to a customer. Those same things need to be done on all the other levels as well. And again, that's just for me trying to become better, more self-aware. It's what we allow the other people to do, but then we make concessions for other people.
I think that's a challenge that everyone struggles with on a real-time basis. So, but being conscious and being aware of it is something that we all have to be mindful of. Just
100%.
at all times, like, hey, I'm talking way too much. Oh wait, what about you? Because everyone loves to talk about themselves, which is what it is. I don't know.
I love to
I
talk.
think it's who we hang out with that,
I love to talk, but not necessarily about myself. Just
That is true.
like outside of people that know me to be able to get I've always been leave it at the door. Everyone has their problems, everyone has their hang-ups, just leave it at the door, get your job done.
Different mindset, right?
Right.
So if you put I'd be curious to put a room of people of all of that same of what would happen.
You get a lot done.
Yeah.
Right. Less distraction.
It's-
We're
I
here to
mean,
go,
get
get in,
the-
get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
yeah.
I would love, everyone's familiar with the whiteboard. Let's whiteboard that idea because it's totally out of context. If you're just in a meeting where everyone's super focused, similar
brainstorming and you're all vibing on the same. See, I love that.
to
Because otherwise you have the meeting, that to me, otherwise you have the people that have meetings to have meetings.
I think it's
Oof, that is one of my big,
Here's the meeting, what's the purpose, stay on scope.
yeah.
Right? And if you deviate, you gotta get somebody to pull you back.
I think it's Jeff Bezos. They do not have PowerPoints in their meetings.
Right.
It's
Do
like
people still do those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the people that have meetings that have meetings.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is, I think
Yeah.
that is,
And those are also the people that put paragraphs on those. Remember?
it literally is,
Bullet
I'm
points.
sorry, I call it half reading. People get so mad at me, but I'm like, I half read it.
Yeah.
It has bit me in the butt a couple times because it is, if you miss a not or without or, but this, yes.
Who has seen a PowerPoint where you can't read everything on there and it's just on to the next one?
Oh, we'll print this out for you. I don't want it printed out. I don't need it printed
We'll
out. I'm not
send
gonna
this.
read it again.
We'll
I
send
want
it
to
to
read it right now. Yeah, we'll send this out to you because you're trying to take notes.
Thanks. Here's
Squinting.
300-page PowerPoint.
What is it, 9 font? Like,
Yeah, right.
But it's so important. Like, no.
Yeah, unless it's graphs or something that's colorful, that is, I don't understand, yes. Some things are needed, but the 85 pages on a deck are just,
So a question, once you moved over to start Newton Steele, what are some of the insights that you've gained more on the fractional side of the business, personally and professionally?
oh, it's a very loaded question too. The fractional side of sales, just doing the sales as an extension of the company is relatively new for me personally. Building out teams and processes and holding the people accountable and making sure that there's a pipeline, it's being managed, you know, the basics of who did you talk to last, when do you need to talk to them again. That's more of what I have been doing from training, coaching, consulting, I don't know, whatever, pick a word. On the fractional side, as much as I love sales, it kind of gets me back into in front of the customer. So wearing the two hats. I like, so it's newer on the outsource sales, so TBD, maybe for next time, because I feel that for me, it's all the things in which I'm implementing and bringing to a team is what, it's practicing what I preach. So I'm doing it alongside with them, so.
So the servant leader type structure, it's like, hey, I'm also selling my services from a certain perspective.
Right, I've done this, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's not, I did it 30 years ago and you should listen to me. It's, you know, still.
What I did 30 years ago is the way to sell nowadays.
Yeah, right, yeah. And don't get me wrong, the basics are there, the fundamentals, absolutely, I agree with them 100%. Those simple things that you need to do, like staying organized, doing what you say you're going to do, following up. We don't mean to, but 6 months goes by and it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot to call them. I thought it was like 6 weeks, you know, so those types of things, yes, you can, there's nothing wrong with, and we forget. Then you add on some software or some AI and some other stuff, and it's like
I forgot to
squirrel.
log the 30 calls I did with
Yeah.
those guys. Right?
When did I talk to them
The old
last?
school guys, it's, you know, hey, I've talked to them, but it's like, why do you need for me to track every single conversation?
Because if you get hit by a bus,
Win the lottery, if you win the lottery.
that bus is running around. Everyone,
It's
I
good.
do. I say that all too often. Yeah, I'm like, if you get hit by a bus, that bus is running around trying to take people out.
Where'd you leave off?
Right. And that is there when you're finding that tension or insecurity from people that won't do that. There's something going on. You need to dig down a little bit further. Like, why does this person feel that that's insecure? It's if they're my client. No, it's not. It's the company you work for. Like, this isn't. If you're trying to protect, and what are you protecting? And there's more to that. I feel. Don't get me wrong. I've also seen it on the flip side where other people have gotten involved and it has made a dumpster fire. So but again, there's something that made them feel that way. There's something else that's going on. If they, if you want to go on vacation. You know, if you want to take time or maternity, paternity leave, whatever that looks like, there's no reason why the customer should have to suffer. And that's my go-to. It's not a matter of you, I know that you want to protect, but you're not doing them a favor. You're doing them a disservice by not sharing that information. Again, that bus, you're not around or actually want to take a vacation. People need to know when to step in seamlessly, because just because something happened, and that's insecurity in and
That's a
of
great
itself. But it's
That's a great point. How is somebody how is somebody going to be able to step in
right,
when you're gone, whether hit by that bus
or when the
or you want
lockout,
to take
or,
a 5-minute break
right,
and
right.
go on vacation?
And then it's all in your head, and that control that you have at the end of the day, it's for the customer. We're all there
I think that's the main point.
for them. And when you lose sight of that, start thinking of yourself and what you think and all the, no, if you continue on the same goal, if you know that that's ultimately the person that you want to protect, that none of the other stuff needs to matter. I hate the word should, because it does or it doesn't. So it is that simple. Everyone's like, oh no, it's way more complicated than that. It really isn't. It isn't. It's what's going to be the best thing, what's the best outcome for them to keep the business moving forward in the event you're not here to do it.
So one thing that I think is always influential, we talked about this previously, making the shift from a producer into a management role. That's like a totally different job, correct?
Yes, the herding cats is what the very unappreciative. It's a tough job. Leaders, I know a lot of people, the title and it sounds good, but it's a very tough job. The sensitivity, it's kind of, when the telemarketers call, you don't ever want to hang up on them, because that's like the karma. And it's the same thing as if you're, individual contributor, having a boss, or being put into the leadership role and having people, like, take a different look at your boss now and put yourself in their position. Like being able to understand all that they're going through.
Human beings.
Yeah, there's still, and again, they're the punching bag. It's someone else's fault. Like you look at it a little different from
So,
that level.
In a prior show that we did, we kind of talked about, salespeople, and does it make sense to have a succession plan for that manager when they move on? The answer is yes. How do you do that? There's many ways to do it. But I guess the question I have for you is, does it really make sense to have your best salesman automatically just move into that manager role?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. And the sales team, various sales teams that I've worked with could have had that job. And the good ones are like, absolutely not. They don't want anything to do with it. It's more responsibility, less money. It's what they've said, their book of business, because a good true leader, in my opinion, which I know is controversial for a lot of people, they should not be running their book of business, because where's their priorities going to come down to? Their book or helping their people? If they still have a quota and they still have, now again, you make it a team effort. You spread that along. You're linking arms with your teammates as opposed to your own book. So that, I know people are like, oh, what else is he doing? It's like, well, clearly you don't know. It's a whole different thing. But I agree. And not every person, just because you are good in sales, going back to is respect the word, or just more grace that you give your customers, because they're your customers, you don't necessarily give to the people that you're working with. So no, I don't think that just because you've been there a long time, or you've shown that you can do it, now you can lead people. It's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah, I think
It's not. Maybe it's just the glamorous title that they want to have, because it's a different person.
right. I think, and we can all attest to this, that salesmen, they're kind of selfish, right?
Yeah.
We're all selfish.
They're kind of jerks.
This is
we
my
are
portfolio.
kind of jerks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's why we're good at what we do.
Right. So
Mhm.
you look at your group of business, you look at your customers, and
Mhm.
your goal is to grow that. And I don't really worry about what my other sales partners are doing.
I'm keeping
Right.
my eye on the ball, and this is
So
where I'm
now
going.
take that person, and now they're the coach, and they have to help everybody else. And that's why, in my history, a lot of times when that one manager did move on, it's like sometimes they did put that top salesperson in that.
Oof.
Sometimes it works. There's a big learning curve sometimes, but sometimes it's like, wow, he's tough to work for, because his expectations are here, and
Because you're assuming
doesn't-
going back to, you're assuming everybody's working the way that you do. That's again that's exactly with me. I'm like, what do you mean you guys aren't all like answering emails at 2 a.m. and hustling and doing all that? Like, that's not the norm. There's very few of that. But if you have that expectation, or it's easy, why can't you get it? But that person needs a little bit of extra help. That's a very tough.
Or maybe now it's time to rethink about the team, and let's get that mindset for that team, that we all have the same mindset.
People
I think-
wired just like me. We talked about the same culture of a group setting.
Right. Yeah, the same person that wants to whiteboard and get the job. I'd be interested to find out of that conversation that you had. Is that within the same company being able to? So you were once at that level and then promoted into that. I think that that's a different dynamic. So to be a salesperson here and then to leave and go to a different company as a leader where you don't have
The history.
Yeah.
The history, like.
Because you were friends with them.
Your
You're your
peers.
buddy.
Your
Yes.
peers, and
Yes.
now you're managing.
Yes. You're going out boozing the night before and
Yeah.
coming in and you're on that level when that's a different level, but you've already done.
They know who you are.
Yeah. It's a
The pros and
sticky-
cons of-
It's
Pros
a
and
sticky
cons.
spot.
Is he
It
out
really
drinking on Friday
Yeah.
night or on
Well,
Thursday
just cover
night?
for me. Will you just
How did
cover
he
me?
get
Yeah.
the job knowing what we know?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then it's like, oh gosh, are you gonna get up there and out me? Or I can't make those excuses because you know what I'm doing, really.
Right.
That's
So I think in the whole realm of just sales, in the realm of business and cash flow, there's so many variables we could talk about because it's the lifeblood of a business.
absolutely.
I think there's like two more questions I can think of. What do people outside of the transportation logistics world need to know about this industry that they may not necessarily know that you know well? I know you simply say like pushing freight, is what
gosh,
it is,
yeah.
but obviously it's a pretty complex competitive industry.
It is, and not one business unit, meaning air expedite or the ocean freight or the truck freight or the expedited. Not one of those business units have the same culture or do it the same way. It's like the same. You can work with two different customers and they have two different ways of doing it. Like that's, for me personally, that's why I love the industry, is because I call it playing MacGyver. Like you really need to get down and figure it out because it's not, well, here's the accounting department and this person does this and this, there's so many more layers and different intricacies that are involved in it. It's great. It wasn't until, of course, 2020 when people knew the supply chain and logistics really was. So that kind of helped, because I would say that and I'm like, I'm in trucking. Let's just say that, because people would be like, oh, are you driving a truck? I'm like, never mind. Yeah. Which it really makes the world go round. It really, really does. And without, we wouldn't have anything.
It's that final miles where how do you get things to and from
right.
easiest
But then all of the steps that it got there to get to
that final step.
and especially during the pandemic, and people, my sister at the time, she was working for an appliance company, and the dealers she sold to, they were giving their customers her number. And I'm like, do they think it's gonna drone out of the sky?
Not yet.
But it has to come from somewhere. Everything that happens within, even hurricane season, you know what I mean? Any type of natural disaster that's happened, the ripples that are through, whether long-term or short, that's what I love about the industry. That's what I love most about
I think the logistics from getting something from point A to point B, it's way more complex to us.
I say, yeah, so we move things from, but there's a lot that goes on in
Yeah.
between. Yeah, there's
so
a
many
lot.
variables.
And the amount of times it's handled is just, I don't know, to me that's fascinating. And I know when they teach it, it is on a broader scale. And it's there's so many intricacies within that final mile, within just from the airport to the DC, and then from the DC, wherever it is, or maybe not the airport, from the ship, and then if it goes on the rail, and then it goes to the where, however, not one process is the same, but each one of those, it's being handled. So by the time it gets to the individual, I know in the schools, they're teaching it in that large scale, the soup to nuts, as they would say. But there's so many different subsets of just that one piece that's running from here to Chicago. Just that alone is millions and millions of dollars, as well as trucks that are just, drive on 94. Drive on any interstate. That's for the trucks they have to drive. They can't.
It's kind of a parking lot, I feel like most
No,
of
that's
the
true, yeah.
That was my
That's
drive.
true, yeah.
My drive here today. Was my issue.
Right.
So I'm like, come on, and that's
Well,
a
those
human.
trucks, no matter what's happening, they cannot, we can take side roads, that truck has to stay there. They cannot take any other, that's their lane,
And that's a critical component to our whole economy.
Well, for
It's
sure,
You have
yeah.
to respect that individual.
if they're late because they got held up because of a fatality in the middle of the mountains, and then they're sitting there for 6 hours, then they have to time out, they can't drive any, there's a lot of, and then so there's a lot of things like that can trickle down that, I don't know, respect the trucking industry. Thank a trucker, honestly. It's a very lucrative business. It is herding cats, but I don't know. They should have a lot more respect than what they have, in my opinion.
I think that's a key lesson, because you never look at the reality of what that person goes through on a daily basis, and that kind of ties into this whole cash flow chronicles piece. The people that are doing these difficult jobs, they have obstacles just like managers we discussed today.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Because at the end of the day, however that's going about getting there, it's what's impacted is cash flow.
Yeah.
It is the money itself. And yeah, even if they're held up, whether it's storm or, again, on the highway exit, whatever the case may be, it ultimately comes down to the dollars, so that it can, whether it's something that needs to get to the shelf or it needs to, it impacts all the way through.
Yeah, I think it's so critical.
But it's so big, but that's what I love about it, because it's so small. It's not.
Everyone knows everyone, but at the same time,
It's
a
massive.
vast, yeah.
It's so massive, but yeah, it is, I don't know. I think it's, maybe I'm too much of a nerd in that way, but I think it's fascinating.
I'm a transportation nerd.
I know, yeah. I love it. I'm like, ooh, how is sausage made?
So what do you want to leave behind with the listeners, or how can we help you all together? Anything?
Thank you for that. Yeah, if there's a proactive sales leader that wants to make sure that their team is staying on par, that they're staying on point to be able to continue to grow, awesome. To be able to help with refining the processes, helping create or perfect the training, or just an additional accountability, that's awesome. As well as for those that realize there's some flat line, that cash flow has been stagnant. The people that were operating here have now dropped down, and that's the new norm, and the new people coming in. There's just a lot of a clash, a lot of excuses. That's what's near and dear to my heart, to be able to come in and help, and holding the accountability factor, which I think is another book actually. But yeah, anything to do with sales processes and building out the sales team, then the continuity of culture.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think the transportation altogether, that industry, it's something that people don't spend time in, and it's so critical. And the one theme is that sales culture is so dynamic and variable.
We're still people, no matter what industry we're in.
But performance is performance, which is what it is. So
yeah, no, it's a good point.
thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.